Hi, it's James here. Just before we were about to publish today's episode, files have been handed over to the Congress Oversight Committee. They're from Jeffrey Epstein's estate. In the podcast, we mentioned the release of Trump's birthday card to Epstein, the note that the Wall Street Journal revealed existed a couple of months ago. But since recording, more files have been released, including what appears to be a birthday note from former President Bill Clinton and what appears to be a glowing note to Epstein from a former Labour minister and current UK ambassador to Washington, Lord Peter Mandelson. A number of pages include pictures of Lord Mandelson and a message that reads the following. Once upon a time, an intelligent, sharp-witted man they call mysterious parachuted into my life. You would spend many hours just waiting for him to turn up, and often, no sooner were you getting used to having him around, you would suddenly be alone again, leaving you with some interesting friends to entertain instead, or just some dogs to keep you company. He wasn't always so keen on them. But then, the message goes on, he would parachute back in, very occasionally taking you by surprise, in some far-off places, or in one of his glorious homes he likes to share with his friends, in brackets, yum yum. But the message goes on, wherever he is in the world, he remains my best pal. Happy birthday, Jeffrey. We love you. A few months ago, I actually asked Lord Mandelson in Washington, D.C. about his former relationship with Epstein. A report by J.P. Morgan Bank suggested that in 2009, when Mandelson was the business secretary in Gordon Brown's Labour government, he had stayed at Epstein's New York apartment while Epstein was in jail. He'd been convicted. In June 2009, did you stay at the apartment in Manhattan of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions about him.
He was in jail at the time for soliciting prostitution from a minor.
And my knowledge of him is something that I regret. I wish I'd never met him in the first place.
Why did you have an association with him? Because he was in jail at the time.
Why did many people meet him? He was a prolific networker, and I wish I'd never met him in the first place.
Was it an error of judgment, sir, or was it more than that? Lord Mandelson speaking in May of this year. Right, time for Trump 100.
James, I was in the White House today. There was a priest there being shown around by Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, and out of the speakers, Donald Trump, his speech that he was giving, talking about God.
And what was he saying?
He was talking about a new America Prays initiative. He wants Americans to come together, to pray more together. But there's always been this question about actually how religious Donald Trump really is.
Yeah, praying to God makes a difference from praying to the Donald, I suppose. But what do you remember the interview, the Old Testament, New Testament interview?
I think the interviewer was also skeptical about how religious he was and asked him, which is your favourite book, old or new? We will tell you what his answer was.
I'm James Matthews.
And I'm Mark Stone, and we're in the Trump 100 studio here in DC.
And to the northwest of us, namely Chicago, we hear news of Operation Midway Blitz. It's been launched on Monday by the Department of Homeland Security, somewhere else faced with huge immigration raids. The Windy City braced for an ice storm.
And forget defence, it's war now. He's been trailing it for some time, but now the president has renamed the Department of Defence. It is the Department of War. We'll discuss why and what it means.
But first, the Trump birthday card to Jeffrey Epstein. We'd heard about it, been told what it was, but we hadn't seen it until now. Mark, we've had publication of the drawing. Remember the story of the woman's body contained in a birthday book given to Jeffrey Epstein for his 50th birthday. Tributes collected by his co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, which included this hand-drawn figure of the female form, signed Donald below the waist. Well, we had heard about it. Now we've seen the picture handed over by lawyers from Epstein's estate to the Congressional Oversight Committee.
Yeah, ever since the Wall Street Journal first published a story detailing the existence of this bawdy birthday card sent by Donald Trump to Jeffrey Epstein for his birthday, the biggest question had been, where is the card? If it had existed, why didn't they just publish it? Well, Trump continued to deny its existence, even suing the Journal and its owner Rupert Murdoch, citing 2 instances of defamation. But now we've seen it.
We do, yeah. Within the body shape of the female form, there's a written conversation. It looks like it's imagined between a Donald and a Jeffrey. At the top, the words voiceover are written, and it starts, "There must be more to life than having everything." Then lower down, Donald says, "We have certain things in common, Jeffrey." And it ends this conversation with Donald saying, "A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday. And may every day be another wonderful secret."
Yeah, and if you want to see the picture, head to the Sky News app, or better still, watch us, Trump 100 on YouTube.
What did you make of it, Mark? The signature in particular. It was just the one word, Donald.
Donald, not Donald Trump, as he often says, just Donald.
There's certainly a similarity. He denies it. Names and faces of women and children were redacted from this book that was handed over. Lawyers for the Epstein estate, they were the ones who delivered this. They said that they were unaware of the existence, interestingly, of a list of clients. There's been this clamour for an Epstein client list. They said no evidence of that exists, of people involved in sex acts, or sex trafficking facilitated by Epstein. They will be aware, as they are in the White House, that, of course, the public actually would like to make their own minds up with a release of the Epstein files. Trump, he has repeatedly denied all association with this document, saying, "I don't draw pictures of women." I think, Mark, this will amplify questions, won't it, surrounding Trump's friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, suggestions of improper behaviour. In suing the publishers of the Wall Street Journal, his lawyers, they argue that no authentic letter or drawing exists.
Yeah, and the president continues to deny any wrongdoing. His press secretary, Caroline Levitt, she tweeted on Monday that the photograph proves that the Wall Street Journal story is false, that it is, quote, very clear, she said, that Trump did not draw this picture. And she added that the Wall Street Journal reporter behind the original story was responsible for a hatchet job.
Yeah, well, it's hard evidence that makes it even harder for Trump to cry hoax. And yet, you know, he surely will. For him to admit now this picture was drawn by his own hand would be to admit a lie that would bind him tighter still to the scandal which stalks him.
So, James, next up, Chicago, or will it be Portland or New Orleans? The president has spent weeks now threatening to variously send in the National Guard to these cities, or to send in his federal ICE agents, or both. He did it in Los Angeles, remember, earlier in the year, federalizing the National Guard in order to overrule the governor there who did not want them. In that case, he used the National Guard to protect ICE agents who were carrying out immigration raids in LA. In Washington, D.C., he deployed the National Guard to quell crime, and crime is down here. The presence of military on the streets has clearly had some impact, but increased policing by the local authorities has had an impact. The main focus now, James, appears to be Chicago, a democratic city in a democratic state with a historic crime challenge, to say the least.
Yeah, and this Chicago operation has a name now, Operation Midway Blitz. That's what the Department of Homeland Security is calling it, targeting, it says, illegal aliens in Chicago or Sanctuary, Illinois, to quote their press release. Much of this, of course, Mark, is in the presentation. The Department of Homeland Security, they're saying this is in honour of Katie Abraham, who was killed in a drink-driving hit-and-run by an illegal alien. They've added on this press release 11 pen portraits of other criminal illegal aliens that they have scooped up off the streets, characterising this as what they say is the start of a targeting of crooks in the area. Donald Trump, he's characterising it as something, well, a bit more apocalyptic, literally apocalypse now. Did you see his social media post at the weekend?
I did. Saturday lunchtime, a post on Truth Social. It was quite something. He posted a picture of himself as Lieutenant Colonel Kilgore from the film Apocalypse Now. The backdrop of the AI-generated image was the Chicago skyline. Helicopters in the sky, explosions in the background, and the words, "Chipocalypse now." I love the smell of deportations in the morning, it said. Chicago is about to find out why it's called the Department of War. It was, of course, a play on the line from the film. I love the smell of napalm in the morning. Intentionally provocative. I don't know what you thought when you saw it.
Well, I thought, OK, Apocalypse Now, but in this script, there's surely room for an old warrior gone mad. You know, what happened to Marlon Brando in all of this? And Chipocalypse Now, come on. Can they not do better than that?
I know. J.B. Pritzker, he's the Democratic governor of Illinois. He shot back at the president. He was taking it seriously and literally. The president of the United States is threatening to go to war with an American city. This is not a joke, he wrote. This is not normal. Illinois won't be intimidated by a wannabe dictator.
Yeah, it's an astonishing spectacle, Mark, isn't it? As his critics point out, this is an American president declaring war on Chicago, and put that together with the rest of the language used in this context, you know, hellholes, killing fields, this suggestion that cities have descended into this zombie apocalypse. It's language that creates a state of fear. In Chicago, there's a problem with crime. They'll tell you that in Chicago. And the city authorities, they say, yeah, we could use help from federal agencies working with our existing law enforcement, working within existing laws to round up the bad guys. But what they don't want is what they see as a gross misportrayal for political purposes.
Yeah, fear sells better than fact. And the president naturally was asked about his apparent plans for war in Chicago when he left for the tennis in New York at the weekend. He wasn't happy with the question. The reporter from NBC News asked him, "You say you're going to war with Chicago?" And he replies, "You say that, darling. It's fake news." Then she asks, "Why the Department of Defense?"
That's fake news. When you say that, darling, that's fake news.
Well, why would you the Department of Defense?
Listen, be quiet. Listen. You don't listen. You never listen. That's why you're second rate. We're not going to war. We're going to clean up our cities. We're going to clean them up so they don't kill 5 people every weekend. That's not war. That's common sense.
So, you know, what does a Chicago with immigration enforcement, ICE, and the National Guard look like? Probably quite similar to that in Los Angeles or here in Washington, D.C. We're waiting to see when they go in. If it's today, tomorrow, this week, the surge we expect to see in Chicago and other cities after that.
But look, I do think it's important to break down what's actually happening. There are clear laws about how the National Guard can be used. If they're deployed by the governor of a state, then that's under what's known as Title 32. This stuff is technical, but it's important. In that case, Title 32, they can be used to supplement the local police. They have the power of arrest. And that is what Trump has been doing in D.C., because there's no governor here. It's not a state, and it's unique in that respect. So he's used Title 32. He's put the National Guard on the streets in D.C., and he would claim, and in fact the Democratic mayor of D.C. has also said, that crime is down. It seems to be working. In LA, though, the Democratic governor did not authorize their deployment. So Trump activated them under a different thing called Title 10. He took federal control of them. Now, in this case, they cannot be used for law enforcement. They cannot make any arrests. And so for Chicago, it appears the same would apply because the governor, another Democrat, he does not want them there. And it begs the question, what are they actually going to be able to do? Because they're not going to be able to deal with crime. They're not going to be able to arrest anyone.
Apocalypse how?
Oh, you like that one, do you? Very good, James. Very good. Look, so that's the National Guard. Now, separately, Trump says that he will flood the city soon with ICE agents to arrest illegal immigrants. He's claiming that many of these immigrants are the ones causing the crime. Now, it's possible, worryingly so, that the influx of these agents, who are incidentally being recruited from Republican states and being offered big bucks to do the work, they are effectively a hired army. It's possible that their influx into a city with a huge immigrant population will cause significant protests. That could lead to Trump sending in the National Guard. He could do that by invoking the Insurrection Act, a federal law that allows the president to deploy federal troops inside a U.S. city to suppress insurrection, domestic violence, or unlawful obstruction of the law. So you can see, some would argue, how he might create a pretext to be able to send in the National Guard.
Yeah, that would be when the rubber hits the road in terms of this government and opposition to this government. It's all heating up, of course, in the same week that the Supreme Court temporarily lifted limits on roving immigration patrols in Los Angeles. Local courts had previously blocked them. So that's a big win for Trump.
Look at it at a glance and you could think that it's a pretty straightforward policy. Remove those who are here illegally. The problem is that so many of these people, now extremely frightened, have been here for years, decades in many cases. They do not have documents. They are officially illegal. But America, the American way, has been to welcome them and to enable them to exist here. As you say, they work, they pay taxes, they get a form of healthcare, they have IDs, driver's licenses, and yet now they face deportation. It is a huge, huge challenge, and I'll have more on that in an episode later this week. Now, James, the military is undoubtedly playing a much more pivotal role domestically here in America. We've talked about it with the National Guard. We saw it too last week with the White House decision to shoot at an alleged drug vessel from Venezuela. It was an escalation for the administration's fight in the fight against drugs, the movement of drugs into the United States, and the government of Venezuela as well, and the gangs, the Tren de Agua gang.
Pete Hegseth, waxing lyrical, he said, "We smoked a drug boat." There's more where that came from. That was how Trump put it. "Let's protect our people from the scum of the earth," said J.D. Vance. Somebody questioned him on social media, and his reply to that was, "I don't give a shit." It sounds to me, Mark, like they're scripting the Hollywood movie of themselves. The less glamorous role in that particular film would fall to the critics, who are saying, hang on a minute, this was an extrajudicial killing. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, JD's social media dissenter, he said it was despicable and thoughtless to glorify killing someone without a trial. But, this is an administration that styles itself as war fighters, and now that's what it says on the tin.
From 1789 until 1947, our nation won some of its greatest military victories under the direction of a Secretary of War operating within a Department of War. Today, with this executive order, you will authorize the current Secretary of Defense and the current Department of Defense to once again embrace this great lineage and once again be named the Secretary of War and the Department of War.
The Department of War, it did once exist, founded in the same year as the French Revolution, but it was dissolved nearly 80 years ago after World War II brought peace and a modern world. Trump, though, wants to put America back on the offense, it would appear. Pete Hegseth, the new chief of this Department of War, he's quite happy with that.
After winning a war for independence in 1789, George Washington established the War Department, and Henry Knox was his first Secretary of War. And this country won every major war after that, to include World War I and World War II. Total victory, Mr. President, as you said. Then 150 years after that, we changed the name after World War II from the Department of War to the Department of Defense in 1947. And as you pointed out, Mr. President, we haven't won a major war since, and that's not to disparage our warfighters, whether it's the Korean War, or the Vietnam War, or our generation of Iraq and Afghanistan. That's to recognize that this name change is not just about renaming, it's about restoring. Words matter. It's restoring, as you've guided us to, Mr. President, restoring the warrior ethos, restoring victory and clarity as an end state, restoring intentionality to the use of force. So at your direction, Mr. President, the War Department is going to fight decisively, not endless conflicts. It's going to fight to win, not to lose. We're going to go on offense, not just on defense. Maximum lethality, not tepid legality. Violent effect, not politically correct. We're going to raise up warriors, not just defenders. So this War Department, Mr. President, just like America, is back. Thank you for your leadership and your clarity. We're going to set the tone for this country. America first, peace through strength, brought to you by the War Department. We're back.
All right, thank you very much.
There you go. Don't mess with Donald and Pete's gang. They talk the talk at least.
Now, James, let's get back to God, because Monday, the day that the Epstein birthday card was released, quite the juxtaposition for Trump to trumpet the puritanical values of evangelical Christianity. But he did just that, introducing his new initiative, America Prays, what he says is a call for Americans to unite in prayer for the nation's prosperity as it reaches its 250th birthday. 1 hour a week for prayer recommended.
Yeah, I wonder, Mark, there are many who worry about the direction of travel towards, as they would have it, a theocracy in this country. Critics would call this another example of the erosion of church and state. Remember, this is a president who was put into office on the back of Christian conservative support and has paid back. You know, he's cracked down on transgender ID and treatment. He's freed up religious speakers to give political endorsement from the pulpit, has cut funding to abortion providers and so on. He's also said that the Department of Education will soon issue new guidance around prayer at school.
For most of our country's history, the Bible was found in every classroom in the nation. Yet in many schools today, students are instead indoctrinated with anti-religious propaganda, and some are even punished for their religious beliefs, and very, very strongly punished. It's ridiculous. I'm pleased to announce this morning that the Department of Education will soon issue new guidance protecting the right to prayer in our public schools, and it's total protection.
Donald Trump, famously a man of God. When Bloomberg sat down with him 10 years ago when he was first running to be president, they were curious, remember, Mark, about the principles that underpinned his faith.
Okay. You mentioned the Bible. You've been talking about how it's your favorite book. And you said, I think last night in Iowa, some people are surprised that you say that. I'm wondering what one or two of your most favored Bible verses are, and why.
I wouldn't want to get into it because to me that's very personal. You know, when I talk about the Bible, it's very personal, so I don't want to get into verses. I don't want to get into.
There's no verse that means a lot to you that you think about or cite?
The Bible means a lot to me, but I don't want to get into specifics.
Even to cite a verse that you like?
No, I don't want to do that.
You're an Old Testament guy or a New Testament guy?
Probably equal. I think it's just an incredible, the whole Bible is an incredible, I joke, very much so. They always hold up the Art of the Deal. I say my second favorite book of all time.
There we go. Trump in 2015.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. What did you think of him, Mr. Trump? Well, I liked his early stuff, but never saw him live. Mark, that's all we have time for today.
Yeah, we'll keep a very close eye on Chicago. More on that, I'm sure, when we're back in your feeds on Friday morning.
Yeah, we'll be back then, at which point you, Mark, will be heading back to Blighty.
Yeah, the state visit. A very, very busy week next week. The pomp with all the King's horses, all the King's men at Windsor next Wednesday, and maybe some tech, trade, AI announcements with the Prime Minister at Chequers and Trump with him on Thursday. You'll have the podcast in your feeds every day next week, and it's going to be a busy one.
Yeah, we look forward to that, Mark. Thank you very much for listening, for watching. Questions, if you have them, as always, do send them in to Trump100 at sky.uk.